We just spent 16 nights aboard the world's first affordable residential cruise ship, the Villa Vie Odyssey, and this is the good, bad, and ugly. Cruise. Hey everyone, what's up? This is Jordan.
And I'm Jared.
And this is JJ Cruise. Thank you so much for clicking into the video today. Well, we just got off of the world's first affordable residential cruise ship, a cruise ship that people are traveling the world and living on board full time.
We wanted to see why people actually live on board this cruise ship and see if it is right for someone here at home. So we're going to tell the good, the bad, the ugly of this cruise ship and this lifestyle at sea.
Before we get into it, we do want to invite you to subscribe to the channel. This is JJ Cruise. We do all things cruising on YouTube all the time. So if you love cruising as much as we do, please hit that subscribe button. If you want to see more cruise content like this, don't forget to hit the thumbs up.
We have to start off with this full, honest review by putting it out there that yes, we were invited by Villa Vie Residences on board this ship. That being said, we have never been paid any money by Villa Vie Residences for this review, for our time on board, for anything regarding commissions or anything like that. We are not travel agents for Villa Vie Residences. We are coming on board as media to give you a full, honest perspective, and we had no contract in place restricting what we say, what we do on board. We are just there to observe and report back for you all at home.
If you haven't heard, Villa Vie is a newer cruise company to the cruise space that offers affordable residential cruising. What does that mean? That means that there are people living full time, making the Odyssey their home while they are traveling and exploring the world.
As Jordan mentioned, they are exploring the world because it's an endless world cruise. Yes, the Villa Vie Odyssey is going to go for 3.5 years traveling, circumnavigating the whole world, and then doing it again and again. People do everything from own actual cabins or villas on this cruise ship to even renting or maybe just going for certain segments of world cruise travel. So it's a very unique concept, but the big part here is that it's also affordable to many people around the world.
One of the biggest questions that we get is, who is this experience for? And hopefully through our review, by the end of this video, we'll be able to answer questions like who should live on Villa Vie ships and what is life on board truly like?
And we will answer the question, would we ever live on board this residential cruise ship? Let's start off with the good. And as a reminder, this is all of our lived experiences. This is no one else's experience but our own. We are talking about our honest review. Starting off with the good, we have to talk about our villa, which is the cruise cabin or the cruise stateroom on board. This villa was super spacious. We know that there are very few of these on this ship, but our experience in our villa was great. There was a lot of space, a really nice balcony, and honestly, the bathroom was just perfect for what we needed for living on board for 2 weeks.
While on Villa Vie, your cabin gets serviced twice a week. So we had our cabin steward come in 2 times a week to do things like freshen up the towels, clean up the space, vacuum, and make things really nice and tidy. We found this to be great. We really didn't need a lot of extra service outside of this, and the cabin steward was excellent at keeping things organized and clean inside our room.
Along with this servicing comes laundry service that's included in your monthly fees on board. This was a great option, but if you did want to use a laundrette, there's a laundrette on board, complimentary, the soap, the time, the water, all of it completely included. So you really had whatever option you wanted. If you want someone else to do the laundry for you, you could, or you could do your own laundry, especially if there's specific items you want cared for in a specific way.
Going outside of our cabin, let's talk about the rest of the ship. Now, this is a very small ship. Coming in at around 24,000 gross tons, the ship is much smaller than other cruise ships that are out on the water today. One of the things we loved about this was that it was very easy to get around the ship. You never had a far walk to get from point A to point B, and it only took a minute or two to get from one side of the ship to the other.
Didn't you say this is like 1/10 the size of the world's largest cruise ship? So that just gives you some perspective. It's a really intimate space, and we found this to be fantastic for getting into these really unique cruise ports around the world.
One of our favorite areas of the ship was the pool deck. They have refreshed the pool deck and made it really nice. There's a pickleball court up there, as well as two pools filled with warm, crystal clear water. There's places for shade as well as places to lay out in the sun. We feel like overall this pool deck is excellent, especially given the age of the ship.
Another area of the ship that we really enjoyed and thought was really impressive was the gym. There's a lot of updated equipment, including Peloton bikes, and that is something that's included, a Peloton membership within your monthly fees. So you can really stay fit and active while on board, even if you're crossing the Pacific Ocean.
There's also fitness classes included in your monthly fees, so there are plenty of ways to stay active on board this cruise ship. One of the biggest questions we had getting on board the Odyssey was, will we be bored, or will there be enough to do specifically on sea days? Well, we were pleasantly surprised. There was a wide variety of activities that were offered while we were on the ship. Included were cooking classes, dance classes. There was speakers that got up and spoke. We saw everything from a medium to learning a little bit about history of some of the destinations that we were going to.
There were also a lot of classic traditional cruise ship activities like game shows, to that of just beer pong or water pong. You have a lot of different things to do on board, and a lot of them are led by residents, and a lot of them are led by actual entertainment team on board. So it's a really good array and diversity of things to do while on Villa Vie. Another big question for us was, how is the Wi-Fi gonna be? Well, we are happy to say with Starlink, the Wi-Fi was actually really good. We really enjoyed our time on Villa Vie with work because there's an office space as well. Jordan spent almost every day going to this office space and working from his laptop, and the speeds were fantastic in this office space. We also had really good Wi-Fi though in our villa, and we weren't knowing for sure how that was going to be, and pleasantly surprised that it was really good and good enough to stream if we wanted to.
Next, let's talk about the food on board. There's two main venues for food, a buffet as well as a main dining room, Thistle. Now, we ate in the main dining room almost every single night for dinner, and overall, we were really impressed and happy with the food. There was a good diverse selection of different foods while we were there, and in general, the food was hot, seasoned, and we could always find a healthier option as well to make sure that we're not overloading on the carbs while living at sea. The current chef on board the Villa Vie Odyssey previously came from Holland America and Viking. So you can kind of think of what the food was like on those ships, and it was a similar experience, at least for the 16 nights that we were on board the Odyssey.
What I loved about Thistle is that it's all fresh, right there, ready-made. So if you're having a steak, it is freshly prepared and made for you. And that is what I loved about the main dining room. Now for the buffet, our favorite part of the buffet was the fact that there was this beautiful alfresco dining space. And that's not rare for a cruise ship in per se, but it was a really great place to be on this intimate cruise ship because you just were right next to the water and being able to see the wake, or if you're at ports, you can see the beautiful port right in your view while eating at the buffet.
In terms of drink service, there were several bars on board the ship. Now, something that we were really impressed with was cocktail prices. You could get a cocktail for as low as $3. Tell me in the comments what other cruise ship you can go on and get a drink for $3. It was extremely reasonable, and we found that the bartenders were really great, and they did a lot of creative drinks that we were able to sample while we were on board.
Now, if you didn't want to go to a bar in the middle of the cruise ship, you could actually drink in your own cabin because you can bring whatever liquor or wine that you want back on board the ship. Yes, this is very unique and not like traditional cruising. If you're at a port in Italy and have a wine that you want to bring back on board, no questions asked, you're good to do it.
One of the biggest points of feedback or questions that we got while we were on board from those of you at home was, what about our furry friends? Can they come with us? Well, we're happy to report that on the Odyssey, cats are allowed. And there are actually more than 10 cats living on board the ship. I'm sure that you may have seen some of these cats on social media, but it's a great thing that you can have one of your four-legged friends with you in your cabin to feel a little bit more like you're at home.
Those were some goods about the ship, but we had to talk about the good about the overall product. A residential cruise ship is very different than traditional cruise ships. And one of the things that we love about this is the variety and options and how you book it. You can actually own a cabin, which is the traditional route per se for a residential cruise ship, but you can also rent a cabin, or you can maybe just book a segment. If you want to do South Asia or you want to do Northern Europe, you can book specific segments of this world cruise as well. There's also different programs to have you try before you buy, where you can put money towards maybe a week stay on board the ship. And if you decide to buy, that money goes towards the actual purchase of your cabin. There's just a lot of different avenues to try the ship out and then book it the way that fits right for your life.
The people on board that are owners shared with us one of their favorite things is that they can have family and friends come on board and visit. And you don't have to break the bank to do so. We met someone on board that was on board for $33 a day, coming on board as a family member of someone else that was an owner. So we think this is great because if you can't get to your family back home, just have your family come to you.
This next point is probably one of the most important points we have to say about the good. And that's because it was the most impressive thing about this Villa Vie experience. And that is the community on board. And we have never met a community like this. This is one of the most impressive communities that we've ever been on board a ship or even in a community on land. You have everything from past diplomats from the US to rocket scientists to that of educators and teachers and vets of the militaries, whether that be in the United States or elsewhere. There are so many different layers of expertise and experience, life experience, that is shared every single day on board between community members. And the best part is, everyone is down to earth and really relaxed.
Now that was who is living on board. But in terms of how they live on board, it's really hard to convey this without seeing it firsthand. This is a true close-knit community. But it's not a clique. We stepped on board and we were welcomed with open arms so warmly in ways that I don't think we've been welcomed before. Some people say this is similar to a college and living in a college dorm. Other people say this is like a community or an apartment building where people really get along and do things together. But people are living together on this ship, spending time together, exploring the world together. And it has to be one of the most amazing communities of belonging that we have ever seen in our life.
I could be sitting at a dinner table with a US ambassador one moment, playing dominoes with a Nobel Peace Prize winner the next. And no matter who I'm sitting next to, it was a friendly community that just loved traveling the world and experiencing new places together.
For Jared and I, who are a married couple, no, we're not brothers, there was also a very large LGBTQ plus community on board, which was really wonderful to see. We loved integrating ourselves into that part of the community on the ship. And once again, we were welcomed with open arms, and the community there was so warm and kind to both of us.
This last good that we have to talk about is the crew. Unlike traditional cruise ships, this ship, the crew is your family. We were on board for only 16 nights, and we had such special moments where we knew the crew like we would know our family back at home.
Actually, one of the bads for the resident that they shared with me that is a good is that there's an unexpected grief that you experience quite frequently as the crew change out and change contracts, because you get to know someone, they become family to you, and then their contract is up. So they have to go back home to wherever they're from. It's a very special relationship between the people on board and the crew, and we were so thankful to get to experience that firsthand.
That was the good. Next is the bad, or some of the concerns that we want to bring up for someone that might be looking to purchase or rent on the Villa Vie Odyssey. And then we're going to talk about the ugly at the end. And this is something that you cannot buy without knowing this ugly, because you have to be okay with it to actually live on this ship.
Let's quickly talk about an update from our first impressions video. If you did watch that video, we had mentioned that the TV channels weren't working the first couple of days while we were on the ship. Thankfully, That was able to be fixed, and we did get TV channels for the rest of the time while we were on board. We didn't have an issue with the TV after that, but I'm sure, again, it always depends on where the ship is and where the satellites are in terms of how well the TV channels will actually work in your stateroom.
The first bad, or actually more of concern for many of you at home, and I've asked this question in our comments, is what about medical? What happens if I'm at sea and I'm in another country and I need medical attention? Well, of course, there's medical facilities on board, but you really need a global or international medical insurance. And there are companies that do this and offer this, but there's a lot of variables that come into play for pricing and rates. We know one couple that uses Cigna for this, but in general, this is just something to know if you're going to travel full time and be at sea or on land, not in your home country.
Something else that would be good to know if you are buying on the ship is that all of the TVs in the cabins or the villas have been replaced and updated with nice flat screen TVs. However, unlike being at home, you cannot stream on these TVs unless you have something like an Apple TV or an Amazon Fire Stick. These are necessities to bring on board with you if you do want to stream your favorite programs from home. We didn't have that with us when we got on board the ship, so there was no streaming that we did in our personal villa.
A bad for us, the hot tubs were under repair the entire time we were on this ship. We were there for 16 days and never once saw the hot tubs working. We do hear that they have the parts and are making those updates, so maybe they'll be up and running soon. But that was, of course, something that wasn't great for our experience on board the ship.
Jared already said that I had worked in the office space every single day, and I loved the office space on board the Odyssey. But something that is a little problematic and would be the bad on the list for the office space is that there's private offices that you can rent for a monthly fee, but those offices have doors that do not go down to the floor or up to the ceiling. So there is a privacy issue or a noise issue. If you're working in one of those offices, you can't really get away or have a private conversation. Of course, we were only there for 16 nights, so we were not using these smaller private rooms. They are all booked out by other people, and we did hear that this was a fix that they were working on, but this is definitely something that if I was renting an office space on board would be a big problem for me.
Another bad or concern was regarding food throughout the day for snacks. There are very few and far between snacks available when it's not the meal time. So you do have breakfast, lunch, and dinner, no problems there. But in between those meals, you really only have sandwiches. Now, it's better than nothing, and we do note that, but sandwiches get a little stale if you're cruising full time on the same ship. So we really hope that in the future they'll have more diversity in snacks, whether that be chips and nuts and different kinds of things that you can have throughout the day or even late at night. Sandwiches just doesn't cut it.
Keeping in the food category, it's very important to note that the buffet and Thistle, the main dining room, do primarily have the same foods. So they're serving the same foods. There was a difference we found, though, in having food on the buffet versus having it freshly plated and brought out to you in the main dining room. We did think that the food was just a little fresher down in Thistle, the main dining room, which is why we ate down there so often. But there's not a variety in food from the buffet to the main dining room, and that's important to note if you're going to be living on board full time.
When it comes to entertainment, there wasn't a huge diversity, or let's just say entertainment wasn't what we were used to on a traditional cruise ship. And that makes sense. You obviously can't have a show be on board this ship because everyone would have seen it once and then be done with it and ready for a new show. So instead, they did have a duo on board that sang and played the guitar. We loved them. They were fantastic. And there was a pianist that did a lot of piano covers in the bar and main areas where people were living throughout the nights and day. But other than this, there wasn't a lot else for traditional entertainment out there, and that's something you should be aware of. People weren't necessarily missing this per se because that's not the focus of this ship. It isn't a resort. It isn't a boutique resort experience like you would do a vacation, but it was something we want to note for anyone wanting to join the Villa Vie Odyssey.
This is probably one of the biggest ones when it comes in terms of things you need to know. You must be adaptable. You have to be a person that is adaptable and flexible. If you're going to be living on board a cruise ship, this would be going for any type of full-time travel. Travel plans change. Ports get canceled. Itineraries get updated. This happens when you go on regular cruises. But on a full-time cruise ship, this is going to consistently happen because you're never leaving this particular ship.
Of course, itineraries are one place where changes always happen, but food is another place. The chef, a great chef from Holland and Viking, is only there for maybe 3 or 4 months at a time, and then a new chef comes on board. That could be great if you're wanting a change up in pace from chef to chef, but it could also mean that you get a chef on board that maybe isn't to your liking, and you have that chef for 3 or 4 months and then change again. So it is something that you have to be aware of, that change is constant on board a residential cruise ship and something you have to be okay with.
Jared and I already travel about 200 nights of the year, so we're close to full-time traveling. And I can say this flexibility and adaptability thing in food, itinerary, schedule, that goes for any type of full-time travel. So it's something to really think about if you are considering to embrace this nomadic lifestyle full-time.
This last bad point or thing to know is that you need to be the mindset of an early adopter when it comes to Villa Vie. Villa Vie is a brand new cruise line. It is like a startup. And when that happens, there's going to be a lot of things that are constantly moving and grooving. Now, some of it is going to move seamlessly and some of it is going to be rocky. That is with any startup of any new company. And we have seen that here on board as well. The good thing of this is, as an early adopter, you're able to get some of the best pricing, the best package options, and sometimes the best experience while it's young before it grows into a full-fledged cruise line or company. So there's pluses and minuses or pros and cons of having that early adopter mentality with a new company.
That was the bad or the things you need to know. Now let's get into the ugly. And I know so many people have been wanting to know, what is the ugly? What was the terrible experience that you had while on board the Odyssey? Honestly, the ugly that you have to know about is simple. It's the age of the ship.
We knew this before this ship was ever in service, that this was going to be a ship purchased as it was out of service already for years. This is an older ship, and with this older ship comes some things that you should be aware of. There will always be constant maintenance on this ship because it's not brand new, and that should be well known prior to even stepping on board.
We had one issue while we were there, which was a leaky sink. Our sink did leak once, but I will say that maintenance was in there within a couple of hours, fixed it, and we didn't have that issue again. It's small things like this that will more than likely happen consistently while you're on board. The good news is there's a very great maintenance team on board that is extremely attentive to details. And in general, all of the public spaces are kept in great condition and very, very clean.
Of course, with an older ship, there's going to be classic design and decor. We walked into one of the ocean view cabins and we're like, this looks like one of the traditional Royal Caribbean cruise cabins, like Enchantment of the Seas. Now, this is an older ship, so it makes sense, but that's something you have to know before getting on board this ship. The good news is this isn't detrimental to having someone come on board. This is just something you need to know. So would we book this ship again?
We would absolutely go on the Odyssey again for long periods of time. We are not obviously owners on board the ship as of now, but we really enjoyed our time on board, and we love the concept of residential cruising and traveling around the world with a community of like-minded people to explore and see places that you never thought you would get to see.
I would recommend this for anyone that's wanting to travel the world with a vibrant, beautiful community of impressive people with great diversity and experience and a sense of venture and wanting to actually travel the world and have new experiences as they do so.
As long as you know what you're getting yourself into, we think that Villa Vie would be a great and viable option for traveling full time. And we hope that you enjoyed this review today.
That was our full honest review of the Villa Vie Odyssey, the world cruise that is once and for all affordable. Please let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Is this something you would want to potentially book, whether that's owning, renting, or doing something different like a segment? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. We'd love to hear it.
Again, my name is Jordan.
And I'm Jared.
And until next time,
See ya.